Thank you, Madam Chair. And first off, to the Levinson family, I can personally attest from being in many settings with your congressman that when you're not around, no cameras, no media, when it's just your congressman with anyone who could possibly do anything to help you, it is the very first thing, and he advocates very passionately on your behalf. I can't even, I've lost count of just how many times I've been in settings with him where he was advocating on behalf of you and your family. And it's important for you to know that because none of that does get covered. And I also know that he's not doing it to get covered. He's doing it to bring your dad home, to bring your spouse home. As far as when we look at the debate over Iran and the Iran nuclear deal, there's discussion over the letter of the deal, and then there's discussion over the spirit of the deal. And the spirit of the deal, you can look at all of Iran's bad activities in total to see whether or not Iran is abiding by the spirit of the deal. I think today's hearing is showing the faces of Iran violating the spirit of the deal. Every time Iran is chanting death to America in their streets, on their holidays, calling us the great Satan, calling Israel the little Satan, test firing intercontinental ballistic missiles in violation of UN resolutions, working to overthrow foreign governments or financing terror, actively doing it right now with the money that was provided to them in the sanctions relief. They are violating the spirit of the deal. And part of the process of recertifying every 3 months the Iran nuclear deal is not just whether or not Iran is in compliance with the letter of the JCPOA, but also whether or not the deal is in America's national interest. It's in the best interest of America's national security. And unfortunately, what we gave up was our leverage that brought the Iranians to the table. As we were negotiating the JCPOA, the Iranians needed the deal more than we did. Not only were we propping up a bad regime, we certainly were propping up the wrong regime when you look at the other options. And if someone was to say they only spent $1 billion or $3 billion on terror, that's $1 billion or $3 billion more than we should have been providing that to them through the sanctions relief. So now we have these Americans being unjustly imprisoned, and the Iranians are not at the table. And that is why I believe that when we were negotiating the deal in the first place, all of these other bad activities should have been part of the agreement, because I don't know what leverage right now we have to have the Iranians come to the table begging to release your family members. And I think it's important for Congress and the administration, for the American public, but also for the international community, because this isn't just the United States, to all be working together to increase sanctions on Iran's bad activities, to get back to that point where the Iranians are begging for the sanctions relief. And at that point, as they're begging for the sanctions relief, we should be putting down a red line that says we will absolutely not agree to this deal unless you release our American prisoners being unjustly held. It's a red line that should have gotten thrown down last time, and it's a red line that should be taken into consideration for next time. And in order for that red line to be effective, I believe that Congress needs to be increasing the sanctions on the Iranians, and that the Americans need to work on putting the teeth back into these sanctions, working with our allies in other countries, because I think that too is part of the purpose of us being here. One is to hear your incredibly moving testimony, to see your faces as the face of Iran's bad activities and your family members as the face of Iran's bad activities, but to do something about it, because you want your family members home. And you know what? With the Iranians, asking nicely isn't going to make it happen, because these aren't good people. They don't respect weakness, they only respect strength. And to get them back to the table and to get your family members home, the pressure needs to get ramped back up, and we need to stop playing nice with the wrong regime, a regime that appeases hardliners and certainly doesn't have your family members' best interests in mind. I yield back.